It's now Siphamandla, no doubt that it has been an emotional time for the particular family that has been affected today. What update do you have for us in this regard?
Indeed, it was a very emotional time for the family. Remember, they last saw their family member alive before going to Mozambique, and then he comes back today in a coffin. For any family, that will be very emotional and traumatic, not only for the family members, but also for his team members who are still left behind in Mozambique, and for members of the SADC here in South Africa who welcomed his mortal remains today at the Waterkloof Air Force Base. It was a very emotional period indeed, emotional time for them. What we do know is that Corporal Tebogo Radebe was part of a unit that is helping the SADC mission in Mozambique to fight off insurgents in the northern part of Mozambique. And I can tell you that according to the information that we have from the SANDF is that his unit was ambushed by insurgents. They were attacked, he was injured, and later on succumbed to those injuries. And that is one thing that is devastating members of the SANDF, even though they do say that they were able to fight off the insurgents. According to the SANDF chief, he says his members were able to deal a serious blow to the insurgents there, but of course they suffered one casualty, and that is Corporal Tebogo Radebe. And according to them, he is a hero who needs to be respected and honored for his ultimate sacrifice of going all the way to Mozambique to ensure that there is stability in Mozambique. And I can tell you that I've covered a gathering of heads of state from the SADC region here in South Africa, in Pretoria. They have been raising concern about the security situation in Mozambique. In fact, those who are members of the diplomatic corps, they cognize that there is a security situation happening in Mozambique which affects the entire SADC region. So it's in the best interest of SADC to ensure that there is peace and stability in Mozambique, because if there is no peace and stability in Mozambique, it will affect neighboring countries, and South Africa being one of those countries. So the SADC mission that is in Mozambique is trying to help that country to deal with the insurgents in the northern part of Mozambique, and Corporal Radebe was there playing his part. Let's take a listen to the chief of the SANDF explaining how painful and difficult it is to lose a soldier.
It is touching in that one loss of a soldier is one too many. However, we take solace in that our member fell with the boots on. That is the only solace that we have. It's an emotional event. We do know that we train as we fight, and during fighting, there are casualties that we sometimes suffer, but we are proud of those who fall in the service of their country.
Now, Sipha, this is a very big conundrum, because the deployment of the SANDF continues despite the loss of life. So the big question then becomes, are they really on top of the situation this side, and is this the direction that should be continued on?
Well, according to the chief of the SANDF, the mission will continue despite this loss. It's nothing that will change their resolve in going ahead. In fact, he says this has motivated them to go all out to ensure that they fight off those insurgents in the northern part of Mozambique, and that the SADC mission in that country is a success, because if it fails, there is a lot at stake for the entire SADC region. Not only Mozambique, but the entire region will face prospects of instability and uncertainty. So therefore the mission will continue. They are mindful of the fact that yes, indeed, it is very painful to lose a soldier. I asked him a question about that mission continuing. He said, well, the mission will continue in Mozambique, and their members are on high alert. They are well trained to deal with issues and situations of ambush. However, saying in a situation of war, there is nothing much you can do except to respond once your team is ambushed. And he says they were able to respond accordingly, even though they suffered this blow by losing one of their members. However, he says they were able to push back and to fight off the insurgents and to ensure that the insurgents and the terrorists, they register what he calls a large number of fatalities, even though he was unable to give us a clear, detailed breakdown of how much members did the insurgents lose, except to say they were dealt a serious blow. Let's take a listen.
The deployment continues, the mission continues, and the people of Mozambique are very proud of the actions of our members. And SADC, as a region, has taken leadership in trying to ensure that one of the sister countries, there will be peace that prevails. And that is what we will continue to do. We will not rest until when the situation in northern Mozambique has stabilized.
Now, Sipho, you did mention a little bit earlier on that you've been watching the story quite closely, particularly the involvement of SADC and what's happening in northern Mozambique. And they keep talking about stability being restored. There's no certainty about when that will happen. But just based on your engagement and your analysis over covering the story, is there any hope that SADC can make a meaningful impact in the current carnage that's happening in northern Mozambique?
There is that hope, but the situation on the ground is very dynamic in a sense that the situation in Mozambique is very volatile, and you are dealing with competing interests here, not only for the region SADC, but you've got external forces and other countries that have got interests, be it political or economic interest in Mozambique. Now, whatever happens in Mozambique, the SADC mission will try by all means to ensure that there is peace and stability. Remember, there are other interests and other interested parties and groups that are outside of the region and even outside of the continent itself who are paying a particular and keen interest, who want to achieve a certain outcome in Mozambique, be it political or for just business and economic reasons. So no matter what happens in Mozambique, first of all, SADC as a region needs to deal with the issue of external forces before coming to the domestic affairs of Mozambique. Remember, Mozambique is a sovereign state like all other countries. Now you have an issue that you cannot interfere so much when it comes to domestic affairs of Mozambique, except to help them when they ask for your help in dealing with the security situation. In fact, some of the issues that have given rise to insurgents in Mozambique, they are socio-economic challenges and issues in Mozambique, issues of poverty, unemployment, inequality, and some people have seen that as an opportunity to join the insurgents. But also you've got other interested parties and stakeholders from outside Mozambique who are hell-bent on seeing that there is chaos in Mozambique so that they can come in with the hope or trying to be seen and perceived as helping Mozambique, yet they want to achieve a particular outcome, be it politically or for business interests. There are resources in Mozambique, and the region, the northern part of Mozambique where these insurgents are very much alive, there is one of those regions that has been identified as being rich in terms of mineral resources. Now, you will have a situation whereby many people would want to gain control of those mineral resources. So it will take time to deal with the situation in Mozambique, but you cannot have a situation whereby SADC as a region steps back, because no matter what happens in Mozambique will affect the neighboring countries. And also in terms of history and context, you cannot just stand by and watch one of your sister countries facing these military or these security challenges. Remember, Mozambique is regarded as one of the frontline states that was able to host South Africa's freedom fighters and those who were in exile. And now you cannot abandon Mozambique. It's not only South Africa that is helping there. Other countries such as Botswana, you have Namibia and others. But also remember, some countries including Rwanda have deployed forces in Mozambique. So that tells you about the security situation in Mozambique and how serious it is. But at the end of the day, it's up to the SADC region, because Mozambique is part of the region, to ensure that there is peace and stability in Mozambique. How long will that take? No one knows for now.
Right. Very briefly and finally, Siphamandla, the DA writing to the Minister of Defence indicating that this deployment should end. The chief has already indicated that the deployment will continue. But another important point that the DA raised in its letter is the issue of finances and financing the deployment of the South African National Defence Force and where that money is going to come from. Have you engaged with the Defence Force around this particular issue?
Not today, but in the past, the issue of cost has always been a major issue for the South African National Defence. They have had to cut some aspects of their budgets. And at the end of the day, it's a difficult balancing act. How do you deal with your domestic affairs here for the SANDF? You've got these budgetary constraints. Do you sit back and allow the situation in Mozambique to continue, which definitely will affect you? Or do you utilize those very limited resources, you take a portion of that and deploy? Hence, the issue of the African standby force of the African Union is very crucial here, to say no matter what happens, individual countries can only do so much because of financial and human resource challenges. If you deploy a team to Mozambique, you have to pay. It's not only about the money. You are talking about human resources too. You will suffer other losses, including loss of life. How do you compensate for that? You will never buy that life back. But at the same time, do you sit back as South Africa, you say you've got issues of budget, you cannot deploy. How are you going to deal with the socio-economic challenges and the security situation emanating from Mozambique in few months' time from now, because you decided to sit back and do nothing about it? I think what needs to happen at a political level is for political parties to engage. Remember, the issue of deploying soldiers to Mozambique has to go through, of course, cabinet. It's a cabinet decision, because it's not something that you will wake up one day and decide to do. So at the end of the day, you need that political engagement to say, how do you undertake this difficult balancing act?
Brilliant. Thank you so much for your time there, Siphamandla Goge, following the return of the remains of the fallen soldier who succumbed to his injuries in Mozambique.